Okay, this is ALHS 1011, and I'm going to start this slideshow. This is the last module. It is the male and female reproductive systems. Okay. This is the male reproductive system. Okay, here are our learning outcomes, our standards. Okay, here are some maybe helpful word roots and combining forms. And we'll start with an overview of the system. So some of the information in these chapters have to do with reproduction at a cellular level. So we're going to start by talking about at a cellular level how this exactly works. So all humans start from what we call a zygote. So this sperm, there's a male gamete, and the egg is, or the ovum is the female gamete. And when the sperm and the egg meet, it forms a zygote. The female eggs are always XX. There are two gene markers, and they're always XX for female on the sex chromosome. For male, he has X and Y. So he can donate either the X or the Y. So gender is determined by the father since the female has no Y to donate. There is what we call the SRY, the sex determining region of the Y on the Y gene. The Y chromosome codes a protein so that androgen, that means andro meaning man, gen means formation. So androgen is forming male-like characteristics so that androgen receptors are produced in the male fetus. Testosterone and androgen receptors are needed for male anatomy to form. So to recap, females are XX, males are XY. The female always donates an X chromosome, and the male decides the gender by donating either an X or a Y. So the primary sex organ, the primary genitalia for a male is not the penis, it's the testes. And the testes is an endocrine and reproductive organ. The testes belong to both because of the hormone testosterone. And at the testes is where sperm is produced. So you have male reproductive anatomy outside of the body. The gubernaculum is the ligament that's present in birth, and that ligament pulls the testes, helps them descend through the inguinal canal in the young man's groin, and pulls it downward into the scrotum. If a child does not, if this does not happen correctly, we say that child has an undescended testicle. It never got pulled down. The reason for this, that it's outside of the body, is that it's 2 degrees centigrade cooler than the core of body temperature. And for the sperm to be viable, for them to be effective, they need to be a little bit cooler. So that is why the testes are descended. This is a cross section of a testes. Each one has lobes. It's sort of similar to an ovary in look a little bit. It also has seminiferous tubules. This is the seminiferous tubules that kind of come out almost like little rings, like little turnarounds here. They produce the sperm, and the interstitial cells means between in the tissue. Those interstitial cells are the ones that create or produce testosterone. So you have the testes producing sperm and testosterone. And this is tissue samples of sperm. So you can see the orange are interstitial cells. You've got a blood vessel next to it. And then in the center, all those blue are tails of spermatozoa or sperm cells. And then you could see the microscopic slide. This is a view of the male perineum. You have the pubic symphysis, the bone on top, the penis. You have the perineal area. The two corners of the diamond are where the ischial tuberosity, the ischium, where you sit, those are sit bones, the anus, and then the coccyx. The scrotum, it houses the testes. Okay, male sex organs. So you have the scrotum, which I mentioned, and that houses the testes. You have a spermatic cord that suspends each. Here's the spermatic cord that suspends each testis. Okay. The pampiniform plexus, say that fast, is a network of veins surrounding the testicular artery, kind of in that in the scrotum, but in that general area here, kind of where the testes is just surrounded. So as I mentioned, the temperature of the testes is maintained by the dartus muscle, the cremator muscles, and the pampiform plexus. So you want the testicles to be descended from the artery, from the main part of the body. You want blood flow to cool a little bit. Okay, spermatic ducts, you have efferent meaning exiting. So here is your scrotum, here's your testes. Then there's the epididymis. What is that? The epididymis looks like kind of a coiled, like, it's kind of coiled, like coiled tubing on top of the testes. And that is the location of sperm. This is where the sperm mature. So we produce the sperm in the testis, but then it matures and gets stored in the epididymis. The ductus deferens, or the vas deferens, okay, is the tube from the epididymis and upward. And that connects the epididymis to the pelvic cavity. And then from there, we have, it kind of goes around the bladder, right? And other secretions would be added to the sperm. And then you have ejaculatory ducts. And this is partly the vas deferens and a duct forming the seminal vesicle. Okay, the seminal vesicle is, like I said, you're coming around the bladder, and there's a seminal vesicle right here that's going to secrete solution for the sperm. Okay, so you have these accessory glands. You have two seminal vesicles. They secrete a mixture of sugar and protein that makes up 60% of semen. So semen is not just sperm, it's got a fluid to it. And 60% of that semen is sugar and protein. And then the prostate gland is right here, kind of below the bladder. That makes an alkaline or basic mixture that contains prostaglandins that makes up the other 30% of the semen. So it kind of buffers any acid, it's alkaline, okay? And then you have two bulbourethral glands right below the prostate gland. And those would secrete a tiny amount of alkaline lubricant. So there's an easy flow of the fluid. Okay, so you have sperm produced in the testes, gets stored and matured in the epididymis. Then when it's time for it to act. It's going to come up the vas deferens like so. It's going to go past the seminal vesicles that are going to secrete that sugar protein secretion. The prostate gland is going to add its prostaglandin, make it more alkaline. Then the bulbourethral glands are going to secrete some lubricant, and then you have semen. Okay, so these are the penis is secondary. The penis is not primary. The primary sex organ is the testes. So the penis has an internal root. Okay, if you were to, God forbid, cut it transverse, it has an internal root and an external shaft. And then the glans is the tip. And the glans is covered by what we call a prepuce. The penis itself is composed of 3 columns of erectile tissue. Okay? And it's paired with the corpora cavernosa. Okay, the 2 superior columns. The column below is the corpus spongiosum. Okay, so we've talked a lot about sperm. Sperm or spermatozoa, or plural is spermatozoon, is a single cell. It's the sex cell. It's a gamete with 2 principal parts. It has a head and it has a tail. And the head contains 23 chromosomes and an enzyme. It's got a tip called the acrosome, and that tip is used to penetrate an egg. So that's got an enzyme that may break that egg down, maybe break the membrane down a little bit. And that acrosome is that pointed tip to allow the sperm to penetrate the egg. The head has 23 chromosomes. The tail is full of mitochondria because it needs a lot of energy to propel the flagellum or the tail. Okay. And the tail has a midpiece, like I said, with lots of mitochondria to produce that energy to move that tail. So when a male is developing testosterone, when a baby is born, testosterone is going to stop a few months after birth and not really resume until after puberty. At puberty, you begin with the production of follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. And it really ends when there's a first ejaculation of viable sperm. So hormones in action. You have follicle stimulating hormone that stimulates the sustenticular cells to produce androgen binding protein, or ABP. And the ABP and the testosterone are needed to help you put those 2 together, and that helps produce sperm. Luteinizing hormone stimulates those interstitial cells to produce the testosterone. So remember, in the cross section of the testes, you had the interstitial cells producing testosterone, and you had sperm also being produced. So the androgen binding protein gets kind of turned on by the FSH, the follicle stimulating hormone, and the luteinizing hormone. So both in combination kind of turn on puberty. There are male secondary sex characteristics. When a young man goes through puberty, they get much more developed skeletally and muscularly. Changes happen in the larynx that cause a deeper voice. They develop axillary and pubic hair and glands, apocrine glands in those areas. They develop facial hair and thickening of hair on their torso and limbs. and they may get some aggression, and then they develop what's called libido or sex drive. Okay, I mentioned that we were going to talk about the cellular level, what happens at the cellular level. Well, we know that mitosis is cell division, and it's one division process that forms all body cells. And at the end of mitosis, we get two of the same exact cells. In meiosis, it's a two-division process, and the end result is not two identical cells. The end result is gametes, is sex cells. Crossing over means an independent assortment in meiosis create new combinations of DNA with genetic variability. So every sperm cell, every egg cell, every gamete is going to be a little bit different. There's crossing over in meiosis, which means that some cells get different parts of the DNA. And then there's some independent assortment. So everyone is going to get something a little bit different. So mitosis, we get clones. Meiosis, we get 4 gametes. Okay. So spermatogenesis, that just means the formation of sperm, involves meiosis to form 4 spermatids and 1 spermatogonia. Okay. So in we're not going to ask you to label anything like this, but in mitosis, you get the exact same cell, right? And then you're going to get a primary, so that's going to be your primary spermatocyte that's now going to go on through meiosis. So now you're going to end up with 4 spermatids. Okay, and then those spermatids are going to mature and become sperm cells. Okay. Okay, so the original spermatogenesis, it starts with a spermatogonium, a mature cell, okay? And it's going to divide by mitosis, and we're going to get 2 identical spermatogonia. The first one remains near the basement membrane, and it's going to serve as the next spermatogonia, okay? The other one is the B1 is going to migrate slightly towards the wall of the lumen in the seminiferous tubule. And it's going to continue to the production process. That spermatogonia B is going to enlarge to become the primary spermatocyte. Once protected, it's going to, the primary spermatocyte goes through meiosis 1. So it's going to go through that initial division. And we're going to get 2 equal, genetically unique, though, secondary spermatocytes, each having 23 chromosomes each. Then the secondary spermatocyte is going to undergo meiosis 2, which is going to produce 4 spermatids, and from that 1 spermatogonium type B. So the picture may make more sense now. You have mitosis, okay? First mitosis, you get a daughter cell. Then that's going to become your primary spermatocyte. Then it's going to divide into 2 unique, what we call half or haplid secondary spermatocytes. When they divide again, you're going to have 4 spermatids, with 23 chromosomes each. And then those are going to eventually mature to become mature sperm cells. Okay. So spermiogenesis, this means sperm production that transforms the spermatids, kind of those teenagers, into functional sperms. So don't confuse the words spermatogenesis and spermiogenesis. Each one of the teenagers or the spermatids is going to form a tail shed its cytoplasm to become a sperm. And we know that this production happens in the testes, and now these guys are going to move to the epididymis to maturing. Okay, the hormonal control in an adult male. Testosterone has a negative feedback loop and a negative feedback loop on the hypothalamus and the anterior pituitary. Sustentacular cells produce inhibin when they are busy with sperm production, so that FSH from the anterior pituitary is inhibited. So let's take a look at this. You have the hypothalamus in the brain releasing gonadotropin hormone. Okay, it's going to tell the anterior pituitary, all right, hey, go ahead and release the LH and the FSH, luteinizing hormone and the follicle stimulating hormone. The luteinizing hormone is going to go to they're both going to the testes, but the luteinizing hormone is going to go to the interstitial cells of the testes and say, produce testosterone. The FSH is going to go to the sustentacular cells of the seminiferous tubules, and it's going to say, produce sperm. So that's what happens here. But a little sperm is going to help that process. Sperm also is going to develop your sex organs, your secondary sex characteristics as well. Okay. Then inhibin is going to tell the anterior pituitary, okay, that's enough. We've got enough of this action happening, and it's going to kind of tell it to shut off, which is also going to tell the hypothalamus you can stop stimulating the anterior pituitary. So inhibin is kind of the shut-off valve. Okay, so we mentioned the sperm production, and this is kind of the pathways of it. So sperm gets produced in the testes, in the seminiferous tubules of the testes. Okay, so in the acronym here is 7-UP. Then it gets matured in the epididymis. Then it goes through the vas deferens. It goes to the ejaculatory ducts. N is nothing. It goes then to the urethra, then to the penis and out. So 7-UP is the mnemonic we use to describe the pathway of sperm. And I believe that's all.